Hi, my name is Richard Rackley, and I'm a realtor at Weichert Realtors Advantage Plus here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm here today with Joni Wilson with Conveyance, Title, and Escrow, and we're going to talk to her today about what is a closing, what are title services, what are the different things that go into when you buy a house, the big table to sign everything. What is all that, you know? Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk to her. Joni, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. So Joni, let's say I'm the buyer. I've got everything done. The closing day is coming up. I've got all my lending set up. What's going to happen at the closing?
Yeah, so you'll come to closing with forms of ID that we would have talked about before you get there.
Got to have ID.
ID.
One or two?
Most lenders require 2 forms of ID.
With a picture?
One with a picture, and then one can be a social security card, passport, you know, a different kind of...
Not a credit card.
Anything except for a credit card, okay. Pretty much. Handgun carry permit, medical ID cards. So once you get to closing, we will, as notary publics, will verify those IDs are valid, have not expired, that kind of thing, that you are who you say you are.
Right.
And then you'll spend about 45 minutes to an hour if you are obtaining a mortgage to go through all those documents and sign.
Okay. What's in those documents?
Yeah, so if you're obtaining a loan, there will be an entire package of documents that the lender will require you to sign. There will be the actual note, which is a promise to pay back money that you're borrowing, the deed of trust, which is pretty much a breakdown of the entire transaction, the promise to pay back the note, and we will record that deed of trust. It puts the name of the property legally into the name of a trustee until you pay off the note that you have promised to pay.
Okay. So all that big bundle of paperwork, a lot of that is for the bank.
Yes, the majority. And there will be maybe a dozen documents that title will require, but the majority of the documents will be for the loan. Okay.
Well, let's talk about that word title.
The title is whose name is on this property legally. So of course, if you purchased a property using cash, then we would prepare a warranty deed with your name on it. We would record that document, and the legal ownership of that property would be therefore in your name after recording. If you obtain a loan, we do record the warranty deed into your name, but then there's also that deed of trust that gives the lender the power to foreclose on that property and take title back on that property if you don't pay what's promised. Right.
Okay. All right. So that's what title is. So what is escrow?
The escrow is pretty much an account that's set up kind of like a bank account, and there will be an agreement between parties to hold money until certain conditions are met. Typically, it's outlined in the contract, and then an escrow company, which not all title companies are also escrow companies, will have a separate agreement for the parties to sign that tells that escrow company how to handle those funds and when to release them.
Okay. I know that I have an escrow account, for example, that when I pay my monthly mortgage, part of that goes into an escrow account that then goes to pay my taxes once a year, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's an example of an escrow account.
Yes.
Okay.
And so there is that kind of escrow account with your, whoever is servicing the mortgage on your loan or your property, that will pay for property taxes, homeowners insurance, and things like that. But of course, also in the closing process, there could be repairs needed on a property before closing. Okay. But of course, we want to go ahead and do closing, but those repairs are not complete yet. So the parties will agree that the escrow company will hold a certain amount of funds for a certain amount of time. Those repairs will be done. The escrow company will be notified and then pay out according to the agreement.
I see. Okay. All right. So that covers escrow. So no more questions about escrow. Okay. It's a scary word, but okay. So what is title insurance?
Yes. And most people are familiar with insurance, when they get homeowners insurance, life insurance, things like that. And that type of insurance deals with things that may happen in the future and the calculated risk for the future. Title insurance is a protection for the interest that an individual has in the title of a property against anything that could happen in the past before the person took title to that property. Okay.
So a family member might think they have claim on a piece of property that happened 20 years ago.
Yes. So
and the insurance would deal with that situation?
Yes, and there are so many situations because whenever we have a contract, the first thing we do is order a 30-year search on the property. That a licensed attorney actually does that title search themselves and presents us with a report. And all those things are of record at the Register of Deeds. But there are things that we cannot see of record. If someone signed a document fraudulently, someone passed away who was on title and had an heir that was not disclosed, that individual could have right to the property. And so if you purchase owner's title insurance and something like that happens, you would file a claim with our underwriter, which ours is Fidelity National, and they would provide legal counsel, representation, and handle those things for you.
Okay, and they'll deal with it because you have the insurance.
Yes.
Title insurance is required?
Owner's title insurance is optional. Of course, we always recommend it just because we have seen some crazy situations that we've had to work to try to clear. If you are obtaining a loan for a mortgage or refinance, the lender will typically require that a lender's title insurance policy is purchased.
Gotcha. Am I leaving anything out that you would like to talk about?
I know a big thing that, especially with so many people moving from out of state to come to the area, if you are purchasing to try to get your cash to close sorted out in advance. Because we do have a lot of people who, go ahead and come from another state to Tennessee. Closing date is coming and they cannot get a wire transfer initiated out of state or cashier's check produced. They actually have to be in person at their bank. So typically, if you handle those things before coming to town, it's a much smoother process. And as well as communicating with your bank about their process for wire transactions. We did have not long ago a buyer who had to send us a couple hundreds of $1,000s at a time. They called their bank and the bank was like, oh, absolutely no problem to initiate a wire. Same day will happen, no problem. The buyer called and then there was actually a limit of $100,000 in a 24-hour period.
Oh,
so that was a shock. And something that if, we can teach people how to communicate with their banks better for closing situations, we can prevent those situations.
So if someone's moving here from out of state, would you recommend that they get a bank set up here?
Yes, if possible.
If possible,
yes, if possible, and go ahead and transfer funds and make them available here.
Okay. If
you don't already have the amount of cash to close needed, those figures, because sometimes those figures aren't available until maybe a week or so before closing.
Right. At least 3 days before closing.
At least 3.
At least 3 days. That's right. All right. Well, so Joni, if someone wanted to give you a call, how would they do that? What's your phone number?
Yes, the phone number is 865-357-3180.
And then what's your email?
Joni, Joni, at conveyancetitle.com.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate everyone watching today. If you have any questions, be sure and put them in the comments. If you like the video, please click the like button and hit subscribe. That would be great. It would really help me out. Again, my name is Richard Rackley. I'm a realtor here in Knoxville, Tennessee. If you'd like to give me a call, 865-326-3736. I've been practicing saying my number because I messed it up last time. All right. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day. All right. So we'll have some music at the end. So let's say that I'm selling a house. My agent tells me that I got to be at your office, let's say, to close on a deal. I guess what I'm getting at is what all goes into that moment so that if the seller is late, what kind of problems does that cause? Yes.
So for a purchase, especially if the buyer is obtaining a loan or, financing things like that for the purchase of the property, the seller's signature on their closing documents, namely the warranty deed, are required for funding approval and those kinds of things. So we actually cannot complete a closing. We cannot disperse any funds without the seller's signature on our documents.
So if the seller were to be missing in action for a day, that causes a whole chain reaction with calculations and interests and all that, right?
It does.
Because that will change the whole look of the mortgage.
Absolutely.
A start date will change, funding, everything has to change, right?
Yes.
Okay.